program this week, we're going to be looking at milking sheep. It's an interesting industry because it is very, very new, and we're going to have a look at some of the hoops that people have to jump through, and believe me, there are a lot of hoops that need to be jumped through. People this week are talking about the shortage of lamb, meaning that there could be a procurement war. But they're also saying, as the experts are suggesting, that the prices will still remain low. Well, dairy prices are still pretty nervous, and the Waikato River Plan seems to be drawing battle lines between farmers and the council. Wolves of New Zealand go into the black for the first time ever, but forestry plantings, they are the lowest they've ever been since World War II. And finally, overseas, 52,000 dairy farmers in Europe are being paid not to milk their cows. Their subsidies will be around $233 million. Just a moment, we're going to be talking about depression, how to recognise it in yourself, and basically why it happens. Interesting point, Karen. The more I dig into mental health, the deeper I get and the more I find out about. It's very prevalent.
It is. Yeah, my preference is to call it emotional health, because I think a lot of the things that we've got trouble with are really unresolved emotions. You know, depression usually has two parts. There's either unresolved emotions and or limiting beliefs, particularly about ourselves. How we think about ourselves can most definitely contribute to our depression.
We seem to attract negativity when we're feeling negative.
Oh, that's an interesting comment. We do. Well, I don't know if you've heard of the law of attraction, Rob, but you know, it is a universal law, much like the law of gravity, because everything's energy. Einstein once said that. He said, everything's energy, that's just physics, it's just the way it is. That's a direct quote. And so it's a scientific fact that your thoughts are energy, your emotions are energy, your beliefs are energy, your expectations are energy. Another word for energy is vibration. Everything vibrates at a certain rate. And the law of attraction states that we attract to us that which matches our vibration. So of course, if your vibration is very low because your thoughts, beliefs and emotions are very low, i.e. during depression, you're going to attract into your life more that matches that. So you just keep going down, down, down.
But I find that if something goes wrong, invariably I just write the week off, because I know that it's, you know, I'm saying it, aren't I? That I know that everything's going to come tumbling in.
Interesting comment, and a lot of people say things like that. What you're doing is you're expecting the worst. Yes, you've had a bad day, you're expecting tomorrow to be bad, and the next day, in fact, you're expecting the whole week to be bad. And of course, when it is, we tend to give up, don't we? Stay in bed or just not try anything. One of the things that depressed people can't do is think positively. You know, a lot of counsellors do that. They go, oh, you're depressed, I'll teach you how to think positively. And that's fantastic if someone's in the right place to learn that, because we all need to learn how to think positively, and it is a learned skill. But the thing is, you can't teach that to a depressed person. They honestly will not be able to do it. So if I said to you, Rob, the problem is that you're expecting the rest of the week to be bad, start expecting it to be good, and you're in a really depressed state, you won't be able to do it. So what we need to do is get people out of that state to a neutral ground, and then teach them how to expect the best.
So how do you lift somebody? I mean, when you've had your 17th bill come in,
Yes.
and you're thinking, you know, I mean, seriously, the income is that much and the outgoings are that much. How do you get people onto a platform above that?
Well, this isn't where I thought the conversation would go today, but let's talk about...
You never know with me, Karen, I promise you.
Let's talk about the law of attraction again, because, as I said, we attract into our lives that which matches our vibration, or what we put out. So what I teach my clients is, if you're focusing on what's wrong and what you don't want, which of course is what worry is, you're going to attract more of what you don't want. For example, if you're worrying about money, you'll think, well, I'm thinking about money, I should be attracting money, but no, because you're focusing on the not having of it, and you're going to attract more not having. You'll attract more situations to take your money, like, you know, machinery breaking down, or, you know, all sorts of problems. So the answer is to start changing and focusing on what you do want. And what I tell people who've got money problems is, say, look, if you've got 10 bills to pay and you've only got the money to pay 5, instead of going, oh goodness me, how am I going to pay all these bills? No, focus on the 5 that you can pay and send out happy, grateful thoughts for the fact that you can pay these 5 bills. Now, Well, what's going to happen is you're going to get these yes but thoughts that come in behind. Yes but, what about those ones you can't pay? Yes but, they're going to be after you. We just flip those away. We're not pretending they don't exist. I'm not saying forget about your bills. No, I'm saying take your focus away from what you can't pay towards what you can, and send out a happy, grateful thought. I can pay these 5 bills. I do have the money to pay these 5 bills. So what you're doing is you're focusing on what you do have, and you'll attract more.
And perhaps not being silly, but you can ring the other 5 and say, hey, listen, I'm really tight at the moment. I'll get back to you.
And 99% of people are fine with that when you just say, aren't they?
No, exactly. And then you feel a lot better.
Yes.
Because exactly. I've found it that with motoring, for example, one of the first lessons I was taught is that if you get into a slide and you're out of control, don't look at the pole, because that's what you'll hit. Look at the soft fence, and that's where you'll end up. And it works.
Yes, that's exactly the same thing. If you do that in life, if you look at where you want to be rather than where you are, and all the realists out there will be going, well, how can you do that? You know, you have to look at where you are. You have to be real about it. But the thing is, you'll never change unless you change your thoughts, beliefs, emotions and expectations. So start focusing on where you want to be rather than where you are.
Well, that's literally why so many people hit a pole, because they're out of control. They look at the pole and they go, I'm going to hit that, and poof.
Yes,
It's
exactly
probably the
right.
last thing they see in a lot of cases. But
Yes.
okay, I mean, let's go back to what we were supposed. I do that, don't I? I go off on tangent, especially
right.
with you, but that's all right. We need to be happy. So what stops us being happy?
Oh, that's a big question. So many things. As I mentioned, I think there's 2 tricks to being happy. Trick 1 is, part 1 is removing the reasons why you're unhappy. And that will be unresolved emotions and limiting beliefs, particularly about yourself, like I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving, things like that. Not smart, not handsome enough, not pretty enough. So part 1 is removing the reasons why you're unhappy. That brings you to a neutral place. Part 2 is learning how to be happy. Because as we've mentioned before, happiness is a learned skill. Only 10% of your happiness has anything to do with what's happening in your life or what's not happening. It's all to do with that. If you can change your mind, you can change your life.
It's a big call.
It is a big call. You know, I've mentioned before, if your parents didn't know how to be happy, how could they possibly teach you? And if you don't know, how can you teach your children? They should be teaching how to be happy in school, honestly. I'm not joking, they should be.
And happiness is not just singing and laughing at a smutty joke.
No, it's mainly learning how to control your mind. That's a big, big thing. I actually teach people how to control their minds. Most people have no idea. Most people's brains are like an undisciplined child that just runs rampant. And we let our mind control us. You know, we lie in bed awake at night and the thoughts are just swirling around, and that's what worry is too.
Yeah, well, how do you get rid of that? Because I don't think there's a person that I know who doesn't lie in bed at night, probably around 2 or 3 in the morning,
Yes.
wide awake,
Well, there's two.
and role playing.
Yes. There's 2 things I can teach people, that I teach my clients how to cope with that, and there's possibly one of them's too long to probably discuss in this show, but one of them is simply meditation. Now, I don't know if you've ever meditated at all, Rob, but meditation is briefly is having a clear and peaceful mind, i.e. no thought. And if you've ever tried to meditate, you'll know that that's almost impossible.
Yeah.
That the thoughts just keep coming. Now, so meditation isn't about stopping those thoughts, because we can't. It's about dropping them. Like, I imagine that my mind is like a colander. You know, if you put water in a colander,
Yep.
immediately it falls through the holes. If I was meditating, then a thought pops in. I notice it and I go, no, out through the holes, dropping you. And another thought will come in, or perhaps the same thought trying to come back. Nope, through the holes. I've taught meditation to a number of teachers, and I say to them, imagine your mind is like a whiteboard, beautiful and clean, and then blat, a thought comes in. So you just wipe it off. Blat, another thought, so you wipe it off. In actual fact, meditation is not this wonderful sitting there blissfully. No, it's a constant state of wiping, or in my case, dropping, whatever visualization you use. So you can actually do that at night in bed. As the thoughts keep coming, you are wiping or dropping or letting them go.
Indeed, Karen, I want to have a bit more on that subject, but that'll be shortly. We'll be back very, very soon talking to Karen about things such as trying to make other people happy at our own expense.
Not sure how to brighten up your backyard? Try Grow Sure Easy flowers, all in one mix. Seed, feed, mulch. It's bloomin' easy. Be sure with Grow Sure from KiwiCare.
Everybody has a story to tell. What's yours? Maybe your family has been farming the land for 5 generations. Perhaps you have invented the next best thing in agriculture, or maybe something else. Whatever your story, if you're out on the land, we want to hear from you. Get in touch by emailing us at info@ontheland.co.nz.
You know that saying, content is king? Well, in today's mixed media world, it's true. You need video, audio, photos and more for social media, for marketing, for communications, sales and for advertising. And you need this at a price that works with your budgets. Well, that's what we do. At Tandem, we partner with you to create the content that you can use to shout to the world or video link to a few. Connect with us and we'll help you connect to the world.
We're living on a planet facing almost insurmountable challenges. Challenges we have to face sooner rather than later. The world needs our energy. She needs our ideas, our passion. It's up to us to change things, make a positive change to the planet, to feed the world, to protect the future, to live well, to be the generation that will make a change. Join us.
Not sure why your camellias aren't cooperating? Try Grow Sure Planting Magic, packed full of nutrients in just one handful. Be sure with Grow Sure from KiwiCare.
There seems to be a growing number of people who are joining the ranks of myself and many other people and saying that they are absolutely sick and tired of the media concentrating on Auckland house prices and poverty in New Zealand. And I think that the minister who came out and said that there's no problem with poverty in New Zealand because there's enough money for everybody through the social welfare divisions, I totally agree with her, quite frankly. I mean, the bottom line is that if you want to get headlines, you do something which is going to be drama. There's an old story in the media, if it bleeds, it leads, which basically means they're into sensationalism. But isn't there a time in your life, seriously, when you've had enough about people going blah, 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 blah about Auckland prices? If you want to live in Auckland, you'll pay Auckland prices. If you want to live in Christchurch, you pay a lot less. If you live in Invercargill, you can work down there and you pay even less on that one as well. Now, the bottom line is, as far as living wherever you want to live, is that there are so many jobs now around that you can work from home. You can go internationally as far as all your communications are concerned. You can Skype people instead of calling on them. The whole world has now moved to the degree that you can run an international business, well, from Tynwald if you wanted to. Now, the other thing is this child poverty thing, and as I said, yes, there is child poverty to a degree. And for those who are trapped in it, my heart goes out to you. But let the media, please, talk about some of the positive things. There are so many good news stories. There are so many success stories. There is so much that we can be proud of. And for example, in the press paper last weekend, they were talking about this huge rise in the number of people who want some very, very exotic food in a supermarket so they can prepare the food that they want. Let's concentrate on filling those needs rather than talk forever about all the negatives, because negatives, I'm afraid, we're sick of them. Don't you agree? Karen, thank you for staying on. People, I understand, go to great lengths to make other people think that they're happy, and they're not.
They do. You know, one thing I often find is because I've written a book on happiness, and sometimes people look at me as if to say, you're an expert on happiness? And I know what they're thinking because I'm actually probably an introvert. I'm a quiet personality type. And some people confuse extroverts with happy people and introverts with unhappy people, and they are completely different things. And the problem with extroverts is that because they often are bubbly and happy and outgoing and fun and the life and soul of the party, they start to feel pressure to be that way all of the time. And if they're feeling a bit down, perhaps they're just starting, perhaps their mood's just a bit down one day and they think, oh, but I can't be down today because people like me because I'm the outgoing funny one. So I have to keep being the outgoing funny one. And so they either A, withdraw and stay in bed, as you sometimes put it, or they put on the mask and pretend to be that person even though inside they're not feeling that way. So they get worse and they keep going down.
Because their whole psyche is, I want to be liked, and if I'm happy and I make everybody laugh,
Yes.
I will be liked.
And they won't like me if they know that I'm having a bad day or that I'm a bit grumpy today or a bit sad today. And so they hide that part of themselves. And when we hide part of ourselves, we can't be happy.
Is it fair to compare that to people who are overweight, who bounce around and pretend that they are the life and soul of the party?
Often, we're not generalising here, but often that can be the case, that they feel, I've got nothing going for me, so I better be fun, or I better be outgoing, or I better project what I think people will like, because I can't like this, so I'll give them something else. And so we're playing a role and we're acting, and that takes a lot of energy.
And when a person who is extroverted, they go home, that's when they crash.
They do, and if they're really crashed, they just don't go out. And you might see someone who's an extrovert, and every time you see them, they're just wonderful and happy and bouncy, and they tell you they've got depression. You think, I don't get that. How can that be? That's because you're not seeing the other part. They never let you see it.
That is a huge subject. The fact that people who are emotionally, what did you call rather than depression, emotionally?
I don't like the term mental health. I prefer emotional health.
Emotional
Yes.
health. So people who are having trouble with their emotional health, they do hide it, and that's why people say, I had no idea that
That's
they
right.
committed suicide.
That's right. And so many people don't ask for help. Like if I was depressed, I might want some company or I might not. How would you know as my friend if I didn't tell you? So one of the things I encourage people to do is to ask for help, let people know the support that's needed. Because often people say, well, what can I do to help? Or, how can I help? And if you don't tell them, how can they possibly know? So reach out, tell someone, hey, I'm feeling really low today, and then say to them, the best support you can give me is, finish that sentence.
How many people are scared witless of failure?
So many. I was telling you before about a story of a client that I was working with recently who his mood goes up and down. It was quite low, and I've been bringing it up and up and up, but he notices occasionally it still dips, and I said to him, I want you to watch for what brings it up and what makes it dip, because they're clues for us. And he noticed that when he was looking, just simply glancing at his list of work would take him absolute plummet his mood. And so I said to him, do you think that the more things on your list of things to do means more opportunities to let people down or more opportunities to fail? And he said, oh my goodness, he said, you're spot on. I think that's exactly what it is. And because if inside we think that we're not doing a good job, that we're letting people down or failing or messing up in some way, then the more we've got, the more opportunity to do that.
So it's self-doubt.
Yeah, that's one of the main contributors. If you ask me, other than unresolved emotions, if you said to me, what is the main contributor to depression, I would say beliefs about ourselves, that we're not good enough, not worthy, not deserving, not lovable.
And if you're looking at the farming industry, there's a lot of areas there where farmers can have personal self-doubt because the prices are bad, they're not topping the sale, the whatever.
Yes. The fact that the prices are bad is only a small portion of the problem. The story we tell ourselves about that is the main issue. Like, it's my fault because I should have done this or I shouldn't have done that, and I'm not good enough and it's my job to make money for my family. It's the story behind the facts that's really the issue.
So extroverts, keep an eye on them.
Yes.
Because they're the ones who are going to be hiding.
If you have a loved one who is an extrovert, perhaps say to them, look, you don't always have to be fun when you're around me. You don't always have to be happy, I love you for who you are, and if you're having a bad day, I still love you as well. And so letting them know that it's okay for them to be not fun.
Exactly. How do you make people talk though? I mean, seriously, I've been there and you don't talk.
I'm pretty good at asking questions.
You are very good at asking questions, actually, Karen. But yeah, I mean, it's because if you'll sit there with somebody that you know pretty well, and you go, well, hey, listen, you've gone quiet. I'm fine.
Okay.
What are your main worries? Well, I don't have any. I'm fine.
Well, one thing is this is not what I do, but you could say, well, I would imagine if I was in your situation, I'd be feeling really bad about myself. Not saying you should be, but I'd say I probably would be, or I'd be probably beating myself up right now, and sort of use yourself as an example, and they might go, oh yeah, well actually there is a bit of that. One of the things I do with people is I say to them, look, I would imagine part of you's happy and part of you's not. I'd love to talk to the part of you that's not. Be as negative as you like and tell me all the reasons why you're not happy right now.
It's probably okay to talk about finances to a mate or a friend too, isn't it? Because if that's what's getting you down, just blurt it out. You don't have to show them your books, but you can say, I can't believe it, mate, the costs of farming at the moment.
That could be a real gift, because if you want someone to open up about how they're feeling, guess what? You have to start. And if you give something of yourself, like something personal, like your financial state or how you're feeling on a not good day, if you give something of yourself, someone will want to give back. So that's how to get them to open up.
Yeah, that makes sense actually, because everybody's got financial, well not everybody, but a lot of people have got financial problems. And if you look in the farming industry, I mean, you've got all these consents that you have to fill in out so you can be a farmer. And I mean, that's a whole different subject, but to go to your neighbour and say, hey, listen, buddy, I don't know what to do about this.
You know, you could come up with some strategies together, like on a bad day when I've got to pay all my bills and I'm feeling really, really low, let's figure out together what we could do to feel better. Like, should we get together for a beer on that day, or shall we go and play golf on that day? Look, what could we do on our bad days to lift each other up?
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be with a glass in your hand, but
No.
that's quite a nice thought. Karen, thank you very much
You're
indeed,
welcome.
because if we can help one person get through their depression, I think we've achieved what we set out to do.
Thank you, Rob.
Still on the program, we're going to be talking about goat farming and also milking sheep and the hoops which you have to go through.
Not sure why your camellias aren't cooperating? Try Grow Sure Planting Magic, packed full of nutrients in just one handful. Be sure with Grow Sure from KiwiCare.
Be Active begins here in the cold, clean, unpolluted southern oceans of New Zealand. Be Active amino acid biostimulant, natural, 100% pure, manufactured from healthy deep sea fish from sustainable New Zealand fisheries. New Zealand's Be Active amino acid biostimulant, the way the world is growing. Working with nature, good for the plant, good for the planet. Now that's growing for good.
Everybody has a story to tell. What's yours? Maybe your family has been farming the land for 5 generations. Perhaps you have invented the next best thing in agriculture, or maybe something else. Whatever your story, if you're out on the land, we want to hear from you. Get in touch by emailing us at info@ontheland.co.nz.
We're living on a planet facing almost insurmountable challenges. Challenges we have to face sooner rather than later. The world needs our energy. She needs our ideas, our passion. It's up to us to change things, make a positive change to the planet, to feed the world, to protect the future, to live well, to be the generation that will make a change. Join us.
Not sure how to brighten up your backyard? Try Grow Sure Easy Flowers, all in one mix. Seed, feed, mulch. It's bloomin' easy. Be sure with Grow Sure from KiwiCare.
Now, you've had a long history as far as goat farming is concerned.
Yes. I was raised on a goat farm. My mum and dad bred Toggenburgs and Alpines back in England, and it's just something that I've enjoyed. I like the goats. I married my husband, who was a Holstein man, and he at the time didn't want to milk any goats and breed them, but slowly as the years have gone on, so we've got back into breeding goats again.
Getting back into breeding goats, that was because of a health issue.
That's correct. Yeah, I have a few various health issues, and I can't tolerate cow's milk. So I tried the goat's milk and realised that was better for me.
So really it went from a hobby into a business.
It did. Well, I brought home 4 goats, turned into 10 goats, and then they got seriously into the breeding of it. And now we're milking 50 this year.
And what's the market for the milk?
At the moment, we're just rearing calves with it. My husband does a lot of embryo transplants and calf rearing like that, so all the calves enjoy the goat's milk, and most calves do better on it as well than what they do the cow's milk.
It's interesting, a number of people who would prefer to buy goat's milk, but they can't find it in the supermarket.
It's hard to find. I think because the amount of cost that goes into setting a factory room, and there's a lot of rules and regulations, it puts a lot of people off. And the big goat co-op on the North Island, it's all exported, and very little of it is kept within the domestic market.
Which is a shame, because a lot of people would prefer to have some sort of milk, but then they're allergic to cow's milk.
Yeah, it's hard. We've contemplated looking at putting our own factory room in, but it is the rules and regulations that put you off. It's a lot of loopholes. There's a lot of rules to be followed, and
there's a lot of hoops to jump through.
That's the word. Yes. Yeah.
So where to, as the industry? I mean, are people looking at it really seriously now?
Yes. Obviously, the amount of money you get for the litrage of goat's milk is very appealing. A lot of people are looking at it for the $7 a litre you can seem to be selling it for. So a lot of people are doing a lot of research. There's a few breeders out there doing their own cheeses as well, and they seem to be doing very well with it.
With all due respect, goat farming was sort of looked down upon by dairy farmers, but that may change.
Yes, I think there's a big demand for it's growing. It's becoming very popular, especially with health issues like myself. People realise that it's a better alternative.
You're stud breeding?
Yes, we stud breed Sarnans, which is the white goats, and Tockenbergs, which is the brown goats.
So, big question, how many have you got now, considering you started with 4?
Okay, so our biggest bulk is Sarnans, so we'd have about 40 milking does that are from pedigree down to being bred up for pedigree, and I have about 10-ish, 15 maybe, Tockenbergs. They're a bit more of a handful, so we keep those numbers a bit lower, and the Sarnans are the real placid, nice and easy goats to handle. 40
goats you're milking by hand, or do you have machines?
Machine. I would have very big hands if I did hand milking.
Yeah, that would have been a bit expensive to set up.
Yes. So we bought a platform for them a few years ago. We bought a machine that milks 4 at a time. But yeah, it's worth doing, and for the milk.
And of course, you can monitor each animal and what they're producing.
Yep. So we herd test. LIC. We do all the solids testing for us, and so we know exactly what each animal is doing. At the moment we're averaging 4% fat and 3% protein, and our top goat is producing just over 10% solids.
So you'll be thrilled about that.
Yeah, I was very, very pleased with this year's herd test, our first one to get. It's brilliant. Yep.
John, if there's one thing that most farmers suffer from, it's back pain.
Indeed, Rob. In fact, most people, I think the figure is either 95 or 98% of their life, percent of people will suffer low back pain sometime in their life. So there's an interesting figure for you.
Up to 98%? Up
to 98%. It's either 95 or 98. I remember reading in the paper many years ago. And the thing about low back pain is it's hardly ever a low back problem. Now people go, I've got sciatica, right? Probably one of the most misdiagnosed. Oh, I've got a slip disc. There's another one.
Yeah, that's a cracker. Yeah, that's.
I've got a slip disc, right? You have a vertebra here and a vertebra there, and the disc is a sort of a gelatinous, actually a cartilaginous piece in the middle with a gelatinous piece in the centre, right? And it is so strongly connected to the vertebra above and below by these things called Sharpie's fibres that if you have a traumatic accident, something that causes a massive shear, the disc will rip through the centre rather than tear away from either piece of bone. So they never, ever, ever, ever slip, right?
Right. And if
What-
you do that, that's a paraplegic anyway.
Yeah. You're pretty much too well person at that point. So, if what we talk about is a disc protrusion or a disc prolapse, that's a different matter. When a person sort of bends forward and off to one side and lifts something a little heavy and a bit stressed and eating the wrong foods and all of that, so everything's set up for the muscles not to do their job properly, then if there's your disc and there's the holes that are left by the two arteries that go in when you're just a little tacker, but they're gone by the time you're adolescent, right? Where those arteries were, there's an intrinsic weakness, and the jelly in the centre of the disc can come out there and compress the nerve root as it comes out, and you get severe pain down your leg. And that's about 1% of your backs. So it's, and when I see that, I go, interesting, surgical referral. You're not my problem. And the main symptom the person will have there is severe pain, most of it below the knee. I mean, various descriptions I've had are my leg is on fire, someone poured molten lead down my gumboot, right? I'd rather be dead, than put up with this. Big men in tears when you lift their leg up past about 30 degrees with straight leg raise. They go, oh, I just can't handle that. Women have told me makes childbirth look like a bit of a cinch. So very severe pain, and most of it in the leg.
And that's surgery.
And that's surgery. So not a chiropractic problem, just a diagnostic one. You go, yeah. It's not even a diagnostic problem, actually. There's 3 or 4 tests you do, and they're way in the 90% reliability stakes. So, but here's the thing: most back pain, low back pain, has very little to do with your low back, right? I would say if I was looking at the 2 biggest single causes of low back pain, they're the wrong food. You've got a food intolerance, right? There'll be a lot of people out there groaning, oh, he's on the food intolerance bandwagon. Well, okay, that's fine. I'll talk to that in a second. And the other major trigger is stress, right? Now, the indicator of a person in stress with a low back problem is they'll probably have a diaphragm fault, so they'll be doing a fair bit of this.
Yep.
Right? Deep sighing, that's a pretty good indicator. Although they'll have cranials, jaw grinder.
That's the pain in the jaw because you've been
Not
clenching your teeth.
Yeah, well, possibly not even as bad enough as pain. They're just a person who does a lot of this. They'll have the head held forward. And, and if you ask them about, are you stressed? I'm not stressed.
Yeah, that's an indicator.
Okay, good. Now, your person who's got the food intolerance, right? And these are things that they don't even show up on blood tests yet. They've got to be much worse to show up on a blood test. I always find it amusing that people go, no problem, right? Severe food intolerance, and somehow it's a jump. Wouldn't you assume it's a continuum, right? Now, let's say the blood test kicks in about here. I'm interested in these people, not down this end, but sort of just before the blood test and whatever. And here's the classic indicator. You get the person to sit on the floor, right, or on a bench or whatever, and they have their legs dead straight, and they have the capital C sign. They look like a big capital C with flat legs, right? And you go, now I want you to get a curve in your low back. So they go with a natural curve in the low back, and their knees pop up. And you go, no, put the knees down. Then the back pops out again. Capital C sign. This person will have pain in bed, right? They'll turn over. They'll be good for about up to 20 minutes, probably not even that long, 5 minutes quite often. They'll wake up in the morning with back pain in bed, and they feel better within a couple of minutes of getting up. By the time they got back from the loo, the back pain's starting to settle. They don't mind working at this height, and they don't mind working at that height, but they hate working at a low bench. That's when it aches, right? Rob's sitting there going,
Yeah, no,
I think I've got that. There's a
seem
lot of
to run
farmers out
through
there
all my
going,
symptoms.
a lot of farmers out there going, oh, I've got that. This is the part they won't like. The most common triggers are gluten, wheat, barley, oats and rye, dairy and soy, right? And what are they? They're foods that we never ever grew up with. We didn't evolve with them, right? These things have been introduced into our diet in the last 10,000 years. And everyone goes, oh, but if I give up dairy, what about, where am I going to get my calcium from? You go, where we always got it from, the rest of our food. If you've got a bad digestive system and you've got a food intolerance, then you're not absorbing well anyway, so what the hell. It's only babies that really need to have calcium from milk. If we look at the Paleolithic record, we look at teeth and bones, no mineral deficiencies in the Paleolithic era. They start from the Mesolithic forward, from when we started farming forward. Interesting little observation.
Come back to the stress symbols, because I keep thinking that I've got really bad posture and I've got to consciously stand up straight and pull my shoulders back.
Right. Now, and that's a bit of a classical way of looking at it, and chiropractors will tell you that. Oh no, you've got bad posture. That's an excuse for them going, it's not I can't fix you, it's not you've got bad posture. You should be able to get most people right in 3 to 4 visits, and if you can't, they're part of that 10% that's got something odd going on that you're going to take some real looking for, or you're not approaching it the right way as a clinician. That'd be my experience, and I don't care whether that's a physio, chiropractor, osteopath, GP, anyone should be able to get you right within about 4 visits, majority of people. Posture is a consequence of pain, not a cause, in my view, right? If you're like that and like that, it's because you're trying to take strain off areas, right? And if you stand upright, it doesn't feel right anyway. But see, if you think of that diaphragm again, right? If you've got a good wide open chest, you've got good breathing, right? Then you don't have to sigh because you're getting plenty of oxygen and you're dumping plenty of carbon dioxide. But if you're not doing that, your brain goes, take a breath, take a breath. So it's a classic indication of our stressed person. But the diaphragm, the abdominal wall and the pelvic floor, everything inside that cavity is fluid, whether it's blood, organs or food, right? And if you tighten all those muscles up, you create a hydraulic column, and that allows the bony rib cage to transmit force through that hydraulic column to the bony pelvis, taking weight off the back and providing good posture. So posture is not the cause of a problem, posture is the consequence of a problem.
Okay, I keep using myself as an example, but I get very...
You're a great example, Rob.
of all the things that can go wrong. I get really bad chest pains, and I've been chested and my heart's like that of an oxen. And then I'll have a really big cry, and my chest is fine again. Because that's your diaphragm again, right? Why do we get this breathing problem with stress? Because we have learnt to suppress our emotions, and Kiwis are some of the best. We are possibly only surpassed by the British ruling class, right? The Aussies are even better than us at this. Seem to be better than us at most things apart from rugby. John, I'm going to hold you there because I do want you to carry on, especially about the food thing. But in just a moment or two, we're going to be talking about milking sheep as a new industry here in New Zealand.
Not sure how to brighten up your backyard? Try Grow Sure Easy Flowers, all in one mix. Seed, feed, mulch. It's bloomin' easy. Be sure with Grow Sure from KiwiCare.
Everybody has a story to tell. What's yours? Maybe your family has been farming the land for 5 generations. Perhaps you have invented the next best thing in agriculture, or maybe something else. Whatever your story, if you're out on the land, we want to hear from you. Get in touch by emailing us at info@ontheland.co.nz.
You know that saying, content is king? Well, in today's mixed media world, it's true. You need video, audio, photos and more for social media, for marketing, for communications, sales and for advertising. And you need this at a price that works with your budgets. Well, that's what we do. At Tandem, we partner with you to create the content that you can use to shout to the world or video link to a few. Connect with us and we'll help you connect to the world. Be Active begins here in the cold, clean, unpolluted southern oceans of New Zealand. Be Active amino acid biostimulant, natural, 100% pure, manufactured from healthy deep sea fish from sustainable New Zealand fisheries. New Zealand's Be Active amino acid biostimulant, the way the world is growing. Working with nature, good for the plant, good for the planet. Now that's growing for good.
We're living on a planet facing almost insurmountable challenges. Challenges we have to face sooner rather than later. The world needs our energy. She needs our ideas, our passion. It's up to us to change things, make a positive change to the planet, to feed the world, to protect the future, to live well. to be the generation that will make a change. Join us.
Not sure why your camellias aren't cooperating? Try Growshaw Planting Magic, packed full of nutrients in just one handful. Be sure with Growshaw from Kiwi Care.
So how did you get into milking sheep?
Okay, Sue and I come from a sheep and beef farming background, managing latterly. We got spat out in the restructuring in the 80s from our own sheep farming career, and we're managing since then. And the last property we managed, Tangihanga Station in Gisborne, a large property, had fairly adventurous trustees. And some of the beneficiaries of the trust were the family that run Waimata Cheese in Gisborne. And one of the trustees, Albert Horsfall, suggested, look, why don't we set up a sheep dairy? Then we can supply Waimata Cheese. We're interested in taking the milk. We needed to do something to our ewe flock because they were pretty ordinary old-fashioned Romneys, and so putting the two together, we get an infusion of new blood, high fertility blood into the flock, and we looked at this sheep dairy idea. Now, long story short, it never worked out. There was too much uncertainty, I think, from the cheesemaker's point of view, and it was more of a seasonal thing that the sheep dairy idea on the Tangihanga never went ahead. But it did get us thinking about the whole concept about sheep dairy. And in the process of that, I met Miles King and other existing dairy farmers sheep dairy farmers at that point. That would have been 2001, 2002. We did get some of the extrusions up from Jock Allison at that point. Some of the units he sold we bought from old Blue 40 and 21. But the sheep dairy part never went ahead, but never went away in our mind. We always had this sort of idea, this gem of an idea, and Sue was always keen that we did something. We left Tangihanga after about 10 years there, from 11 years ago now, in 2005, and came down to Lincoln and became townies. And then we had the earthquakes and the house got sort of munted. We got some people offered us a good price for the house as is where it was, so we were out of there. And Sue said, why don't we buy a block of land and get back to our sheep dairy idea? And so we did. So we bought this block of land. We bought 10 hectares out here with the idea of setting it up as a sheep dairy. We've had all sorts of trials and tribulations with water and windstorms and things like that since we've been here. But basically, that's where it started. And we've never regretted the idea. The journey's been a fairly short one, but the gem of an idea came way back in Gisborne and it ended up in Christchurch, Canterbury.
There's a lot of hoops to jump through.
A lot of hoops to jump through, and every time you jump through one you think, phew, we're over, but you find there's another one. And I think progressively more difficult. Initially we had the council, Selwyn, and all of these hoops you have to jump through, they're all quite reasonable in their own right, except they take time, they take money, and they slow you down, slow your progress down. So we had Selwyn just getting the consents organised for building a bespoke, I said, building, it's not an off-the-shelf type building. That took quite a while, and we tried to do a lot of the building ourselves, so it slowed it down. ECAN were good, reasonable, but it's still, you had to develop your own templates because it's sheep dairy, it's not cow dairy, so there's a whole lot of new questions to be asked. But that was okay, we got through that one. We had Assure Quality come through, they do their process, and you've also got MPI, especially when you're looking at export. And we've gone for the maximum quality of permits or registration that we can get. So we have the ability to export quality milk, which is just future-proofs us. So then you start dealing with MPI, and that's another whole process you have to run through. And all of them ask reasonable questions and have reasonable expectations, but there's a lot of parallel processes between one department, or Assure Quality, say, and MPI, which take more time. and the whole thing takes time, and so it does become a pretty slow process.
So really plan ahead if you wanted to get into the industry.
You do have to plan ahead, but there's a limit to how far ahead you can plan, because you've still got to have the physical evidence to show that you're doing what you're doing. And without an overarching governing body like Fonterra or something like that, Dairy NZ, you don't have a industry auditing body that can make it smooth for you. You've got to deal yourself with all these different processes. And so that does make it a slower process. I'm sure it does. Dairy farmers couldn't survive under this sort of regime.
What are you going to do with the end product?
Well, traditionally sheep's milk's made into cheese. That's where its traditional background is, and yoghurt. We got a lot of help from existing cheese makers in the sheep industry, so we thought we don't want to compete with these guys. And we think there is a finite limit to what New Zealand can handle regards to domestic amounts of sheep cheese. New Zealand's the largest consumer of ice cream in the world. I think it's 26 kg of ice cream per year we all eat, and we eat our fair share. And sheep's milk makes the best ice cream of the lot. So our ultimate goal was to make ice cream. And that's still our goal. And ice cream or gelato. Gelato is a slightly slimmer version of premium ice cream, slightly lower fat version. So you don't have to do the separations and add more cream to it. Along the way of making all these, of making ice cream, or any process, you've got to pasteurize your milk and what have you. And the yogurt process is virtually part of that whole pasteurisation process. So we thought, well, we might as well start with the processing. And initially we'll start with yogurt, then move on to the ice cream and what have you. And maybe sell some pasteurised milk along the way too, just for cash flow purposes. So ice cream was our first goal, and we had an independent company who was going to toll manufacture for us. For various reasons, they had a change of ownership that tipped over. That cost us more time, because rather than setting up our own processes, we relied upon them. So we've had to go back to the plan A and set up all our own processes. And that starts another round of compliance with food safety, which is going through a new reforming process at the moment. So we're not quite sure what the ultimate outcome of that's going to be, but it will be another slow, short process, no doubt.
John, we're very Victorian about telling people our feelings.
We are, Robin, and we were talking about this last time, and we were talking about how that feeds into things like suppressing emotions, which tightens our diaphragm up and then sets us up for other problems. And part of that is an attitudinal thing, and we see it as wrong to show our emotions and to be emotional, right? Now, I think there's a distinction, and I'm trying to teach this to my son, between I have scraped my hands, right, and now I'm going to burst into tears, right? And I feel really sad about the fact that I've lost Teddy Dog, right? One is physical pain. I think it doesn't hurt to have a little bit of toughness against physical pain. You know, okay, he's only 3. We're training him for when he's 5, because he's got to go to school yet, right?
Yeah, right. He's got to meet somebody who's bigger than him.
Yeah, but I think emotional pain, you've got to learn to let it out, you know. I mean, I think I mentioned to you, nobody looks at Maori and go, wimpy race, you know. But Maori have it sorted on emotional pain. They let emotional pain out. In fact, I was just reading an article the other day on an assessment model for Maori called the Mahina model. Mahina model, probably said wrong. Very interesting stuff. But the chap who was like the progenitor of that was a chap called Mason Jury, really well known in mental health, particularly Maori mental health area. And he said the key element to understanding Maori mental health, and I think it's to understanding all health, frankly, is this model he calls Te Whare Tapa Whā, which is the 4 walls of the house, right? And the 4 walls are physical health, mental health, right? So your mind, spiritual health, and family, right? And I think that if you've got all those things going right with you, right, you don't have many problems. It's very rare you've got a problem. And if you have got a problem, it's one that medicine will probably deal with quite well, because it likes things like that. But those other things all lead into functional disorder. And functional disorder is what sets us up for those deep emotional problems and for the chronic stuff, the gut stuff, the back stuff, the sleep stuff, the low energy. Those are all functional, usually in base.
I want to talk about the gut, as you put it, because you're an advocate for not eating a whole lot of different things that we live on.
I'm an advocate for some people not eating a whole lot of things that we live on, right? I mean, I've got my own little one. Mine's dairy, right? Love cream and I love cheese. And I like white wine, which for some reason somebody thought you should put dairy into.
What?
Yeah. If you check on the back of most white wine bottles, it'll have contains dairy or egg, and egg sometimes, if you're really lucky. And if you're intolerant to both, you go, there
Sounds
goes.
like a meal all in itself.
It does. It goes, I'll just have the wine. Thanks. Yeah. White. Doesn't happen with reds, fortunately, but I think it's something to do with precipitating out the yeast, but I'm not sure of that. But it's quite a few people do have an intolerance to these foods, and that will show up mainly as a gut problem, and it will show up as back pain, and it will show up as atopic disorder.
What?
Asthma, eczema, hay fever, hives, right? It's a particular type of immune response involving immunoglobulin IgE.
And this is the body saying, I don't want you.
Well, I like to use, well, yes and no. It's a targeting issue. You know, if you've got asthma, eczema, hay fever, it's a targeting issue. Why are you attacking body tissue? Doesn't seem like a logical thing to be doing, right? Unless it's cancer, then it's a very good idea. And it's a targeting issue, and I use the analogy of terrorism, right? Because it's the way I think.
One day I know that people can understand that though, John.
But if you were thinking, let's say we have some Egypt come into the middle of a mall, blow himself up, right? Kill 20 people, right? Maim another 40, right? We think, that's not good. Then it happens somewhere else. We go, okay, now it's serious. So then we stick all these people on the borders, checking them coming in, right? Everybody's listening to your telephone calls and reading your emails, spot checks, all of this stuff. And all of this people who used to be involved in industrial and economic production are now tied up doing this bureaucratic administrative security stuff. Consequence, we catch people before they blow themselves up a mall. Good thing, right? Downside, all of that function is now taken away. And so in the immune system, the equivalent is you have a food intolerance. Because there's an evolutionary advantage in allowing us to eat a food that we normally couldn't eat, because in a famine that would have been useful, right? So we have this capacity to suppress that immune function that's associated with the intolerance. The downside of it is it uses a huge amount of immune function, and other immune things don't work well. Hence your atopic disorders flare up. So I would say to everyone, even if they don't want to come and see me and get tested for foods, scratch tests I think are a waste of time, frankly. I've got my own voodoo way of doing it and it's much more reliable, just my opinion. But if you've got a kid, say, who's got asthma, eczema, hay fever, straight off take them off gluten, dairy, eggs and soy, maybe corn, right? Give them 2 weeks of absolute withdrawal, right?
Just protein?
No, well, all of those contain proteins, and it's usually the proteinaceous component of them that causes the problem. But you take them off those foods, and if their intolerance improves, keep them off for a good month, and then introduce one at a time and see if you get a flare-up. Now, that's the way to test it if you don't want to do it our way. And don't be scared about that causing some sort of nutritional deficiency with calcium or whatever. Almonds have got plenty of calcium in it. Meat's got calcium in it, you know. Eat sardines, the bones inside them, full of calcium and phosphorus. Same with your tinned salmon. There's plenty of ways to get calcium back in your diet. But it's like your terrorist situation, right? If you haven't had an attack for a long time, then the government goes, oh, well, this is all very expensive. We don't really seem to need it, and IS are gone now anyway. So we'll dismantle all that. If you then have the food, after you've dismantled it all, you'll get a really severe gutsache because you haven't got the protective mechanism in place. So, and if you have a little bit of the food all the time, right, the body won't dismantle the immune protective function. So either give it up or don't bother. Cutting back is a complete waste of time, right?
John, thank you very much indeed. Now, if you'd like to recap what John has just been saying, of course, you can go to our website, which is ontheland.co.nz. I'm Rob Cope-Williams. You've either been watching the programme or you've just missed it, but I will be back at the same time next week. Until then, bye now.